The March of Conquest. The Tau have developed their own mode of timekeeping, based on the annual cycle of their origin world. A unit called a Tausir, except on human planets that are still in the process of being subsumed. The Tau do not use the Imperium's date system. However, for ease of translation, we have done so here. Millennium 35 to 36, Birth of the Tauvar. From the ashes of war rises a new empire of hope and reason. Guided by the ethereals, this period is defined by the uniting of the Tau's divided castes in the name of the greater good. Land's Vision. The Adeptus Mechanicus explorator vessel Land's Vision makes the first discovery of primitive Tau. End of the Mont Tau. Strange lights are seen, and the ethereals arrive. Millennium 37 to Millennium 38. First Sphere Expansion. A time of great scientific and cultural evolution, during which the Tau advance into nearby space and colonize the first septs of their fledgling empire. First Colony. The Tau colonize their largest moon, Luval. This is their first off-world holding. Tau-Un established. Ethereals declare the colony centered around the planet Tau-Un will become their own sept, or realm, governed centrally from Tau-Un, the sept world or prime planet. Welcome additions. The Poktrun become the first sentient race to join the Tau Empire, although within a few generations, disease destroys their indigenous population. The Tau, whose physiology is fortunately immune to the plague, inherit the Poktrun home world, turning it into the prime world of what will become Borkan Sept. The Nikasa become the first race to join the Tau Empire and survive long enough to tell about it. Campaign of Cleansing. In their first prolonged campaign against the Orcs, the Tau suffer many defeats, but are ultimately able to eradicate the Greenskins, thanks in part to the Earth-cast refinement of the first pulse rifle. During this period of bloody war, Dalith Sept is founded. The Union of Tau and Kroot. In order to combat Orcs, the fortunate alliance between Tau and Kroot is formed. Within a decade, the Water Caste has established embassies upon Petch, the capital world of the Kroot realm. Millennium 39 to 41. Second Sphere Expansion. The Ethereal Supreme, On Way of the Whispering Wisdom, gives the signal to begin the long-planned Second Sphere Expansion. On Way's famous speech is well remembered, ending with the nod that launched 1,000,000 ships. With new advances in propulsion technology and an already established space empire, the second expansion is marked by more contact with aliens and larger wars. A new ally. The planet Vespid is absorbed into Dianoi Sept. They have long been courted by the Water Caste, but little was established save for crystal trade agreements. Within days of ethereal involvement, the Vespid strain leaders submit wholeheartedly to the cause of the greater good. Nadras colonized. Despite reservations from those of the Earth caste who urge further study of Nadras's inexplicable sensor readings, the planet is chosen by the High Ethereal Council as the prime world of a new sept. Steady advancement. Improvements to anti-grav motors and new battlesuit technology. The T-Series prototypes help the Firecast complete the annexation of Tashvar Sept. Mistaken identity. War is declared upon the cruel raiders victimizing the new colonies of Kelshan. Believing that they have tracked their foes down, the Tau instead destroy the Eldarai maiden world of Lilarsis. Future relationships continue to be strained. Viola Triumphant. A massive Orc fleet invades Viola Sept, but is defeated by a masterful campaign. Viola annually passes through a gap between its two stars, a time called the Trial by Fire. It causes deadly plasma storms to ravage the planet, whose inhabitants survived by closing protective domes around their cities. Warlord Garskrak and his fleet are lured into the storm, where they are utterly destroyed by the raging plasma radiation. Mass migration. The greatest Water Caste envoy, Por-O Dalith Case Tui Lutan, better known as the Golden Ambassador, leads the effort to recruit alien worlds into the Tau Empire. During this period, the Saxians, Greet and Formosians are welcomed into the fold. The Hrad and Arachen reject the proposals and are driven out of the region. A legend is born. The Tau who will one day become Commander Puretide, the pride of Darith Sept, is born. His brilliant campaigns later conquer half a dozen star systems. Under his authority, the Tau envelop those who can be embraced, seize what can be conquered, and obliterate those who defy the greater good. The once and future master. The elderly Commander Puretide is urged to view the new colonies across the Damocles Gulf before retiring. While inspecting a colony, Puretide is wounded during a raid. Unable to walk again, the most revered of military leaders spends his remaining years atop Mount Kanji on Dalith, where he is kept alive for many more decades. Only those who attain perfect scores at the Firecast Academies are sent to sit at Puretide's hover throne and learn his wisdom. Thanks to Earthcast holographic technology, this tradition is still maintained, although few students are deemed worthy of this high honor. The Arkunasha War. A decade-long war in which a populous Tau colony is besieged by the resurgent Orquards begins. It is especially notable for the rise of the exemplary Puretide protégé named Commander Farsight, who swiftly follows in his master's footsteps to become a vaunted hero of the Tau Empire and a key element of the High Council campaigns of propaganda. The Damocles Crusade. The Tau Empire comes under sustained attack by an armada of the Imperium's warships on a crusade to reclaim their long-neglected territory. It is a bloody campaign, which is finally stymied at Darith Prime. The retreat of Imperial forces marks the end of the Second Sphere expansion. The Stasis Chamber. Ornvar makes the decision to place the favored pupils of the rapidly declining Commander Puretide into stasis using prototype technology. This allows Oshacera and a few select others to be recalled at later need. Rogue Commander. Following the Damocles Crusade, Commander Farsight recaptures much of the lost territory. However, the famed commander defies orders to return, instead establishing a string of fortified plants known as the Farsight Enclaves. Canovar destroyed. The Tau world of Canovar is overwhelmed. Transmissions show robotic creatures using unidentified energy weapons. Ally unlooked for. An Orc invasion under Warlord Grog advances into the Tau Empire. The populated Tau world of Atari Vo bears the brunt of the attack before the Orcs are finally defeated by the combined forces of Darith Sept and, to the surprise of many, Commander Farsight and his separatists. A new menace. Tynid Highfleet Gorgon smashes into the fringe of the Tau Empire and claws inwards. It is ultimately defeated upon the Sept world of Kelshan, with the help of unlikely allies in the form of a fleet of ships from the Imperium of Mankind. Great War of Confederation. Led by Viola, many Septs combine to hold off the single largest Orc war to have penetrated the Tau Empire. This campaign is also notable for the brilliant tactics and battle record of a Chasseau recently awoken from stasis, who there earns the name Shadow Sun. Lagan System. Decades of watercast work has converted many human worlds in the Lagan system. With the help of an expeditionary force, the star system is graded a Class 1 colony, moving steadily towards becoming a fully fledged Sept. However, all this preparation comes to naught as the sector becomes a war zone, targeted for Xenos cleansing by the Ultramarine Space Marine chapter. Many colonists are slain. The Nimbosa Annexation. Commander Brightsword, a student of Farsight's way of war, leads an attack to claim the Imperial world of Nimbosa. By the time the Imperium brings reinforcements, the Tau are preparing to defend their new planet. The fighting culminates with the infamous Kodas Gorge Massacre, where the forces of the Astra Militarum are so brutally slaughtered that Brightsword is censured and summoned back to Tau due to the remorselessness of his acts. Since this attack, the planet has changed hands several more times and remains a war zone. Millennium 41, Third Sphere Expansion. After careful preparation, the new Ethereal Supreme, Unvar, launches the Third Sphere Expansion. Ximien established. The first sept of the Third Sphere expansion is declared and used as a staging ground for further advancement. Defense of the Farside Enclaves. With his spearhead of 80 XV-8 crisis teams, Commander Farsight leads a counterattack against a tendril of High Fleet Kraken that has entered his territory. Chasseur Case victorious. It is unknown when Chasseur Case, another of Puretine's former protégés, emerged from stasis, but it is he that leads the victories that established the Pharios sept at this time. Defeat at Zeiss. An Imperial fleet enters the Zeiss sector. The Space Marines drive the Tau from many of their colonies there, and while the losses are regrettable, the gains elsewhere are on such a scale that, even to the casualty-conscious Tau, Shadow Sun's diversion seems not just acceptable, but shrewd. Mugulath Bay. In the largest battle of the Third Sphere expansion, Commander Shadow Sun leads the invasion of the Imperial world of Agredon, beginning the rout of human forces now known as the Path of Blood. It is a bright day for the Tau, who saw a foe with vastly superior numbers crushed, and the process of integrating the newly designated Sept world of Mugulath Bay into the Empire is quickly begun. Of the numerous advanced weapon prototypes deployed in the campaign, all were successful save one, a fusion reactor whose meltdown destroyed Mugulath's moon. Cataclysm. The Imperium of Mankind sends a colossal combined fleet to retake Mugulath Bay, spearheaded by the ships of humanity's elite space marines. Battle is joined across the barren world, as Tau Fire warriors exchange furious salvos with the advancing regiments of the Astra Militarum, and thousands of tanks clash in a murderous maelstrom of explosions, churned earth, and flying shrapnel. The Pariah returns. The vengeful ferocity of the Space Marines and the blunt force of the Astra Militarum's armed regiments force the defenders of Mugulath Bay back at every turn. Commander Shadow Sun delays the advance with a series of cunning strikes, but even her mastery of Kaon is not enough to repel the invaders. Just as the Tau are on the verge of an open rout, crimson battlesuits fall from low orbit, smashing into the midst of Imperial formations and blasting the shocked enemies with hails of cluster missiles and searing plasma. The legendary Commander Farsight, outcast of the Tau Empire, has joined the fight. Uneasy alliance. Commander Farsight and Shadow Sun forge a temporary alliance, with the reluctant assent of Ethereal Supreme Onvar. The elderly Ethereal refuses to abandon Mugulath Bay despite Shadow Sun's pleas, and retreats to a hidden bunker, where he broadcasts messages of strength and unity to his loyal warriors. Imperial vengeance. The Officio Assassinorum unleashes the horror of an execution force upon the Tau commanders of Mugulath Bay. Ethereal Supreme Onvar is tracked down and murdered by a nightmarish Colexus assassin. Damocles burns. The Adeptus Mechanicus deploys a warhead of astonishing power that sets Mugulath Bay ablaze. As the war-weary Tau survivors reluctantly abandon their devastated Sept world, the unnatural fires continue to spread. Soon a vast swathe of the Damocles Gulf burns, separating the Tau Empire and the Imperium. Wrath of Ages. The Hrad ravaged the Tau Sept world of Vashia. Thousands of fire warriors are slain, as the Hrad's bizarre chronoentropic fields cause them to age several decades in a matter of hours. The surviving Tau retreat and regroup. Their commander initiates combat protocol Avatar, unleashing waves of combat drones and remotely operated XV-8 crisis battlesuits. Their super alloys resistant to the Hrad's withering aura, these automated warriors scour the alien infestation from the surface of Vashia with flamers and fusion blasters, sending the hunched creatures fleeing into the depths of space. Bright dawn, setting sun. Tau forces under the nominal command of Ethereal Ornkir unite with the Elderai of Krathworld Luganath to assail a tendril of High Fleet Gorgon before it reaches the Perdius Rift. In a brutal naval battle, the Tyranids are defeated, though many lives are lost. In the aftermath, On Kier and his honor guard are granted audience aboard the Eldari flagship. Soon after this meeting, the Serial High Council grants On Kier control of his own pacification fleet, which heads beyond the Purdus Rift on a mission of utmost secrecy. Tide of Fire. The oceans of Antelex boil under relentless missile cascades from Storm Surge weapons platforms as Tau of Voriolasept engage the colossal orc navy of Rocktooth. Unsought Liberation. An insertion contingent of Tau Pathfinders is deployed to Codman's Lock, a forge world dedicated to the construction of small arms and munitions. They escort several watercast insurrection specialists, whose task is to incite rebellion amongst the hive-bound working classes. Tau spies report that the planet's underclasses have recently been stockpiling contraband weapons for an upcoming insurrection against their cruel masters. This information is in fact accurate, but it masks the true horror of the situation. A hostile cult known as the Disciples of the Bleeding Stars has infiltrated the labor unions of Cadman's Lock, spreading the worship of their strange gods. The Tau's entreaties are greeted with a hail of autogun fire, and several warriors and diplomats are snatched away into the darkness of the Hive City's undertunnels by hulking razor-clawed figures. Surrounded on all sides by mutated demi-humans, the contingent survivors are forced to battle their way to the surface of Cadman's Lock for extraction. Before they depart, they activate a wide-band hollow signal that is picked up by the planet's Adeptus Mechanicus administration. Skitarii forces are dispatched to the Underhives to investigate. An open warfare breaks out as they discover the extent of the cultist infestation. Tau high-orbit Recon probes perform a thorough analysis during the ensuing carnage. Kin against kin. A convoy of survivors from the fall of Mugalath Bay attempts to flee to the Farsight enclaves. Commander Surestrike is dispatched to cut off the dissidents and return them for censure and reassignment. Surestrike's fleet reaches their convoy at the same time as a fleet from the rebel enclaves. The rebels open communications and warn the commander to retreat. A tense standoff ensues, culminating in a vicious exchange of fire. Many of the fleeing ships are caught in the crossfire, though several dozen escape alongside the enclave's navy. A tempting lure. Having tormented Dalith space for many seasons, a host of Drukhari raiders launches an assault upon the colony world of Shien, a sparsely defended frontier outpost with a large population consisting almost entirely of various Tau client races. They sweep into the desert planet's great habitat spheres, butchering with impunity. It is only when the raiders are fully occupied with their slaughter that the Dalith Firecast springs its trap. Macro-camouflage arrays and wide-span refraction fields are deactivated, and scores of breacher teams emerge from concealed positions to deliver a brutal barrage of fire into the flanks of the startled Drukhari. Though losses amongst the Tau's vessel races are substantial, the devastating impact of the sudden ambush all but obliterates the foe. Behemoth Slayer. A colossal orc gargant terrorizes the cities of Hulan. Its black iron armor seems impervious to even the most intense pulse fire and missile bombardments, and its formidable array of solid-shot cannons and projectile launchers annihilate entire Firecast cadres in mere minutes. The gruff, static-laden laughter of its orc pilots booms out over the Gargant's enormous Vox arrays, as it crushes entire buildings to rubble with each swing of its great metal arms. Swarms of greenskins follow in the wake of this behemoth, bellowing praises to their gods of war. Only the Borkan Earth scientist Tulen and his experimental weapons division stands in the way of the monstrosity. Tulen orders the deployment of 6 KV-128 Storm Surge weapons platforms, each armed with multi-phased locked pulse ARC cannons. A new refinement of these devastating devices. Even the enormous Storm Surge ballistic suits are dwarfed by the sheer size of the Orc Gargant. But when they fire their arc cannons simultaneously, the beams converge, melting into a ray of destructive energy as wide as a star scraper. This battering ram of pure annihilation burns through the Gargant's metal torso setting off a chain reaction of detonations that tear the massive construction apart. Tulen marks the first field test of his new technology as an impressive success, though the power of the channeled plasma energy has entirely immolated 3 of the 6 Storm Surge platforms. Millennium 41, 4th and 5th Sphere expansions. A new and darker age dawns for the Tau Empire, beginning with the greatest naval disaster in its history. Tragedy at Numenor Point. Equipped with the latest sub-realm transition technology, an enormous armada gathers at Numenor Point, aiming to travel beyond the devastated Damocles Gulf. As the ships of this 4th Sphere expansion prepare to engage their jump drives, a breach in reality swallows the armada, dragging the entire assembled fleet into the roiling depths of the Immaterium. From the Master's Shadow. The Necrons of the Sautek dynasty launch a series of attacks along the western reaches of the Tau Empire. Crack Firecast contingents from Tau and Tau-On are sent to repel the invaders. They are led by Commander Orvash, a protege of Commander Shadowsun, who earned significant honors during the 3rd Sphere expansion. Orvash adopts the tactics of his tutor, splitting his forces into hunting packs and tearing at the flanks of the Necron invasion fleet, delaying its advance and buying precious time for the beleaguered Empire to dispatch reinforcements. Mutiny on Junica. The war against Chaos forces on Junica goes ill, and the Firecast suffer horrific losses. The Ethereal Supreme Onvar is holding audience with Commander Orin, responsible for prosecuting the offensive, when a tank shell strikes the war camp. Onvar's ethereal retinue is slain, but the Ethereal Supreme, or rather the solid light hologram representing the deceased leader, is unharmed. Yet, when Onvar orders the commander to send her remaining warriors to the front lines to buy time for reinforcements, Orin feels no compunction to obey. Unthinkably, she refuses the order, judging it a waste of good warriors and claiming that Junica is lost. In doing so, she becomes the first Tau since Farsight himself to disobey a command from an ethereal. Several days later, an Edification Corps fleet descends upon Junica with the intention of detaining Orin's entire command, only to find that the commander and her loyal warriors have fled to the Farsight enclaves. All witnesses to Orin's act of treason are sequestered, and the remaining cadres on Junica broken up and dispersed across the Empire. Grim Sojourn. Commander Farsight travels back to Arthas Moloch alone, refusing to allow his loyal bodyguards to accompany him. For 30 days and nights, there is no word from the leader of the Farsight enclaves. When he finally returns from his sojourn, Farsight immediately summons the enclave's chief strategists to a war council. The Blooding. Elite city fighting cadres from Sasia are sent to reclaim the colony of Olme from an orc infestation. Advancing street by street, the Sakare breacher teams utilize airburst marker light flares and overwhelming aerial support to identify and destroy the largest congregations of greenskins. So brutal is the close quarters fighting that the Seps Firecast refer to the Olme campaigners, Montieren, the Blooding, and survivors of the war are held in the highest regard. Hope rekindled. After more than a decade, a deep space probe is discovered, drifting through the zone of silence, broadcasting signals on frequencies dating from the launch of the 4th Sphere expansion. When aircast recon vessels locate this beacon, they discover a stunning phenomenon, a vast swirling vortex in space. This dimensional pathway, which the Tau come to name the Startide Nexus, is previously unrecorded on the Empire's detailed star charts. The captured probe contains coordinates to a colony far to the north, and territory claimed by the Imperium of Mankind, now revealed to be home to the survivors of the 4th Sphere expansion. Reunited. The 5th Sphere expansion travels through the Startide Nexus and arrives at the Nemyar Atoll, a cluster of colonized worlds and starborn arcologies that is home to the remnants of the 4th Sphere expansion. The survivors' experiences have transformed them into uncompromising hardliners, and they have developed an intense distrust of non-Tau, particularly the Empire's Gevase auxiliaries. New worlds. Reunited with their lost kin, the Tau of the 5th Sphere expansion embark on an extensive campaign of colonization and consolidation, establishing a cluster of new SEP worlds around Nimya Atoll. The Plague Wars. Commander O'Case is sent to prepare the verdant world of Kellic for colonization. Unfortunately, Plague Marines of the Death Guard have already made landfall, are in the process of pouring the disease-ridden, liquefied remains of their sacrificial victims into Kellic's Great Lakes. Tau gunships and piranhas knife into the heretic Astartes, overwhelming dozens of Plague Marines with bursts of incinerating plasma fire. However, the Death Guard had already seeded their foul corruption deep into the bedrock of Kellic. Fetid creatures begin to crawl from the tainted waterways in their thousands. The clouds of fat-bodied flies block visor displays and clog helmet breathers. The Plague Marines rally and regroup, chortling wetly as they unleash brutal fusillades of bolter fire that burst upon Tau bodies like ripe fruit. Commander O'Case refuses to abandon his mission, even in the face of this repulsive contagion, and the surface of Kellic becomes host to a deluge of blood and bile. The Charpactin. Water-caste diplomats from the Fifth Sphere Sept of Fesan encounter the Charpactin, a race of sentient fungoid creatures who communicate entirely in bursts of ultraviolet color. These strobing emanations prove surprisingly effective at subduing and transfixing living beings, rendering them docile and amenable. The Tau quickly negotiate a client-state treaty with the Charpactin, drafting many of these creatures into their growing edification cause. The Viridium Scepter. Amanex Soulrend, exalted sorcerer of Tzeentch, unleashes his silvered sons against the newly found Sept world of Diaketh, while his rubric marines march through recently constructed conurbations and laboratory complexes, incinerating all in their path with salvos of incendiary rounds. Soulrend and his personal retinue head deep underground. Far beneath the planet's crust lies an Earth-caste research facility, which has spent several months studying a strange artifact. A scepter crafted from viridium crystals that thrums with barely suppressed energy. Just as Soulrend nears the priceless relic, he is assailed by experimental battlesuits and fire warriors wielding supercharged plasma carbines. These weapons fire searing beams of green-white fire that burn through even the warp-blessed armor of Soulrend's warriors. Battle lines are drawn as sorcery meets cutting-edge technology, and the fires of war consume Diaketh. Drowned in fire. An insertion contingent of Tau pathfinders from Viola Sept lures a blood-mad warband of cornate heretic Astartes onto the volcanic moon of Duxul before activating a macropulse bomb that ruptures Duxul's tectonic plate and drowns the satellite in a tide of liquid magma. Many Pathfinder teams willingly sacrifice their lives in order for the gambit to succeed, but the Skullsworn pack is almost entirely incinerated in the ensuing devastation. Battle of the Startide Nexus. Merely months after the Fourth Sphere survivors rejoined their pupil, an enormous Death Guard armada tears its way from the warp and emerges in the heart of the Nimya Atoll, before the mouth of the Starstride Nexus itself. The Chaos Fleet launches attack ships and boarding crawlers filled with heretic Astartes at the star fortresses guarding the spatial rift. The Shock Tower Defense Fleet reacts with remarkable speed, blasting many of these vessels to atoms, but many more slip through the barrage and spill packs of frenzied killers into tide-locked arcologies and stellar fortifications. A furious battle rages. The Tau know that if the Nexus falls, a route to the heart of the Empire will be left open. The warriors of the Firecast fight with desperate courage, selling their lives by the thousand to repel the invaders. Commander Shadowsun leads an immense counterattack into the heart of the Chaos Fleet, blasting demonic enemies and hulking Plague Marines into a putrid mist with each cannonade from her twin fusion blasters. Yet even her desperate heroics surely cannot hold back Nurgle's chosen legion for long.